What's going on, guys? If you can't tell, I'm in the middle of something a bit different. Sitting in about a halfway finished new space. And I'm really excited to show you. There's going to be a lot of really cool videos that are being made right here, right now, in the editing bay right off screen. But about a month ago, I had the opportunity to talk to a longtime friend of Elliott Smith and his producer, Larry Crane. And I flew all the way across the country to do it. So while we're in the middle of this, we made this video as a special occasion to learn new secrets about Elliott Smith, talk about everything under the sun about Elliott. So enjoy. I'll be back here really soon with a bunch of really awesome videos, and wish me luck. Build is pretty intense. Bye-bye. All right, we are in Jackpot recording studio. I'm gonna be honest, I've been here for like 25 minutes just talking to Larry, but we're gonna pretend like we're just walking in. We got Kay behind the camera. I'm gonna leave Kay's production information and any of the band work. I just like to plug the people that we're working with here because I've yet to work with anyone that isn't super cool. All right, so this is the opening room. It's got a bunch of drums in it. And if we come over here, Larry said this part wasn't very interesting, but I think it is. If we go in the bathroom, I love, this is like a sitar, right? But it's not the sitar version.
I have no idea. Maybe a cello? No.
Well, I think this is pretty sick.
Yeah.
Records and strings in it and everything else. All right, and then behind this door, this is what you actually are here for. The man himself.
Hey guys.
What's up, Larry?
Come
Good
on
to see
in.
you. I already broke the illusion. We've actually been here for 20 minutes straight talking.
You already told?
I already told.
Oh man. Like every reality show, it's all fake. Oh my God. Welcome to Jackpot Recording Studio. Man. Okay. Fire away. Questions?
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess the very first question before we get into like the depths of all the gear is, you mentioned over email that Elliott, even though this is not the original location of Jackpot Studios, right?
Yeah.
But his influence on this space is still around, right?
Even the colors, like the purple, yellow, orange, were in the blue in the front room, green in the next room, the live room. Those were colors that he and I believe my first wife picked.
Wow.
I didn't have any. I said, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember like they looked at some colors and he helped pick the colors for the place and helped paint it, the original space.
Yeah.
Of course. This place was built after he'd passed away, you know, and I moved in here because our old space was being torn down to turn into condos as they do in Portland.
Damn.
But and I wasn't.
Did they kick you out of the old space?
Well, I got like 2 years notice.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I had a really nice landlord.
Yeah.
And you know, the space we were in was really like a cinder block box.
Right.
That we built the walls for and just moved in like in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Just threw our gear in there and started recording people.
I did a little bit of like detective work beforehand, and like I remember, I think you said in a podcast that Elliott helped like with the drywall and mudding and stuff
he was
like
really
that,
good
right?
Yeah.
That was like some of the work that he did.
Right. There's photos
to just
of
like
it.
make ends meet, right?
Yeah, he's doing work, painting and putting up drywall, and he had been doing drywall mudding and taping with Pete Krebs, who's another musician friend of ours, and they would go around and do that. I don't know where they both learned it or whatever.
Nice.
It's one of the skills that I wasn't that good at and still not good at. Like I could build the wall, put up the drywall, frame a door. Terrible at mudding and taping, so it was kind of amazing.
I'm terrible at putting drywall anchors in walls. So you're doing better than me already.
I had a really awesome dad. He taught me a lot of stuff.
Nice. All right.
So but that was he helped. We were there for like 14-hour days for 2 weeks or something, building the place. Yeah. And we put all of our recording gear in there. And
how does the gear compare? Like that, you had a Tascam 38 whenever you're doing laundry rules, right?
Right. But we both had those. Yeah. So those came over to the new space. Whatever Elliott's like Mackie console we never brought it in there. Yeah. I bought a bigger Mackie, a 32x8, and then we both wanted a 16-track 2-inch tape deck. Yeah. So I bought the original one that we had, an MCI GH16, which was like a big like washer dryer kind of thing. It wouldn't even fit through the doorway. We couldn't at the old space. We had to take the door frame off to take it into the room.
Nice.
It was so wide.
Yeah.
And it was really a maintenance nightmare, to be honest. I think it still might be floating around Portland, but I don't want to see it. But it sounded great when it worked, and so that's what we tracked Miss Misery on.
Yeah.
Baby Britain was tracked on it that Elliott and I did, and there's a demo for Waltz Number 2 that no one's really heard.
Yeah.
And some other things, Blood White.
Right.
A bunch of songs from that record were demoed on that, you know.
So the stuff from Laundry Rules,
yeah.
like that stuff basically migrated over to Laundry, or you just
Laundry Rules, I only did one little project with him.
Oh, okay.
So what happened was he had been working at my friend JJ's office studio space. He brought his gear down there from his home and was working out of there. And he'd been working at home too before that. But then he would go down to the shop, and which was Rob and Tom's place for producing him, Rob Schnapp and Tom Rothrock.
Right.
So he'd go down to Arcata and then work on stuff, and then come home and work on stuff. So he was kind of going between. So he would take like his 8-track deck in the back of his car, go down there, dump that over to 16-track at their place, add things to it, come back, maybe do something else. So at the point that he needed to use my studio because his Mackie console broke.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so we had the same, he's like, you have the same tape deck. And so he was at a party at my house. We just went downstairs, and he's like, I'll book some time. And I think like next week he came over. Like he had a stereo mix of pictures of me on the 8-track, and then he had 6 open tracks, and he just did all the vocals in my house. And we used, I think we used his mic, his Longiman CR3A.
Yep.
And I had a little mic pre that I built from a kit. There was a company called Paya, P-A-I-A, and I built this mic pre, and it kind of gave it a little edge or something. It was a little different.
Was it kind of like a Neve style pre, or like a 1073 sort of thing?
More like an ART.
Oh, okay.
To be honest.
Right, got you.
It wasn't very high end. It was just an op-amp chip with a tube for like saturation.
Got you.
Kind of circuit. But it sounded okay, you know.
Nice.
So we did that.
Sounds pretty sick to me. Pictures of Me is like one of my favorite ones from the entire record.
Great song. I was blown away because I'd only heard like Roman Candle, his first album.
Yeah.
So we worked over there on that, but he kept working on his own and then taking things to Rob and Tom. So that's why the album Either Or is kind of like very piecemeal, because some songs he actually finished in that space at Undercover, at JJ's space, and then other songs he took down and finished with those guys.
Yeah. Well, that's why I thought that was a really awesome record to talk about, because, you know, when you think of the early stuff, so many people were asking, like, can you recreate Clementine or things like that? And what I found challenging about recreating Clementine is it is not the production. You know, it might be like the sort of the roughness of the production and the Porta Studio that gives it a vibe, but
that's not Porta Studio.
Oh, it's not?
No, that's 8-track.
Oh, it is?
That's if it's not the Tascam 38, it was like an Atari 5050 maybe, 8-track.
Okay, gotcha.
I can't remember now.
Right.
If that was one that was borrowed or one that he owned.
Right.
But that was 8. The second record's all 8-track.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the first record's all 4-track cassette that were borrowed units.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
From Neil Gust and another friend of Elliott's.
That one was, all that work is like very much just like Elliott on display. And Either Or I thought was a really cool record because it had this sort of like split between like a lot of high production elements, stuff at the shop in Arcata, and also working on like a Tascam 38 and doing it in basements and wherever needed.
Yeah, being able to do more overdubs for the songs that needed it. Yeah. You know, people always seem to say like, oh, he got on a major label and he added all these instruments, and it was like he was already, even the first record, I think the instrumental has a little bit of like cymbal or something. Yeah. And then on the second record, the self-titled, there's like there's sort of a floor tom ride cymbal maybe going on, and there's some organs and different things. You know, it's not as sparse as people pretend it is. Right. They're always confused about that. But in the arrangements, you know, sometimes the guitars would imply more arrangement than was there maybe too. And so he's just fleshing it out. I was surprised when I heard Pictures of Me because it was very fleshed out with organ and all these drums, bass, everything. But it was, you know, it was in that Baroque pop kind of vein, you know, like Zombies, Left Bank kind of thing, and Beatles, of course, that we both liked. And figured out that we both liked at the same time. Oh, you like that too? Hell yeah. You know, but it was just like, you know, trying to mimic what records sounded good to him. Totally. In a way. Totally. Or the Kinks, obviously. Actually, the Kinks hardly ever get mentioned.
Yeah, they're kind of like, they fly under the radar a lot, but
with him, that was like he had the Kinks Chronicles, I think, the CDs of that down at the studio. We'd listen to that, like, you know, Autumn Almanac, and he'd play some of those, like Autumn Almanac, he'd walk around playing it, it's Autumn Almanac. He'd play some of those songs. I remember him rehearsing Waterloo Sunset and asking me what I thought some of the lyrics were. You know, so that was probably, you know, if you think of those arrangements on those Kinks records, they're you know, there'd be French horn, there'd be keyboards, you know, Nicky Hopkins would come in and play organ and piano. Yeah. There's a lot going on those that's very, like, just perfect.
Yeah, well, I think because I feel like a lot of the arrangements are very musical, they serve the song really well. You don't understand the deceptive complexity until you pick up, especially the guitar, and you start to play it, and you start to realize, like, for those who haven't seen the original video, I recreated Ballad of Big Nothing, and it didn't particularly stick out to me that guitar arrangement was going to be really, really challenging. And then it took me forever not only to get to the right tone, it took me forever to learn the parts and the open tuning, and I think that's part of why he's so easy to really indulge in, because at first you're like, I like this, and then you're like, wait a minute, I really like this because of the fact that I'm able to understand the nuance more and more, even if it is palatable right from the start.
I think you're right. I think people don't hear the complexity or the depth right away sometimes, and he gets written off as like a folky, which makes no sense whatsoever. He was never a folky or a folk singer or anything like that. It's just because sometimes he'd only be playing an acoustic guitar, you know. Like, you know, he worked hard at everything he did. And that's just like, you know, the fact that he could go in and someone emailed the other day and they said, like, did you write the drums for Miss Misery? I'm like, no, I played them. I don't play drums. I don't write drum parts unless I really have to, and I'll be using you know, tune tracks, you know, or something. You know, Easy Drummer, you know, I'm not writing parts. You know, it's like he learned drums like in high school. He learned acoustic guitar before that. He learned piano before that. You know, he figured out how to play bass and organ, and it's like, so he played all the instruments, you know, generally. Like, I didn't even think about until the other day. It was like one of the records, someone was talking about it, and I'm like, they're like, well, he played all the instruments on it. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean,
like, I didn't think about it being a weird thing, you know. Yeah. You know, XO, he has some guests, you know, here and there. Figure 8, like Joey Warnicker plays some drums. John Bryan plays on XO, some cool Mellotron, Chamberlain stuff.
Totally.
You know, there's people that come in for the specialties or whatever, Sam Coombs, of course, on bass, you know, so. But yeah, I mean, the guy could, you know, arrange like you couldn't believe.
Totally. Well, I think we're getting more into like the second half. Let's talk a little bit about the space.
So what happened was we lost our old space. It was going to be, you know, turned into the condos. And my friends, Scott and Michelle, Scott is the owner of Hamptone, which is an audio gear company. They had moved in together. They'd sold the 2 houses they both owned and got married. I was at the wedding. And then they moved into a house down the street, and they saw this empty lot, and they had the money from the sales. They had to put it into some property, right? And they were like, let's go buy that empty lot. And so this was an empty lot, and I ran into Scott somewhere, and I go, I'm losing my space. And he goes, oh, let's talk, because they were in preparations to build a new building here. So I was able to get in on the ground floor, meet with the architect with them.
Design the building from the ground up.
And help, and with Scott's help massively, and Michelle, get to figure out what we were going to do with the space, how we're going to divide it up, and what we're going to do. So next door, they have a shop. They're building tube microphone, power supplies.
It's right next door?
Yes, right next door, through the wall, right there.
Wow, that's sick. I didn't know that.
They're building compressors. They have a couple of different compressors now, mic preamps. We have custom mic preamps from them, like these ones here that I love. And then this like Hamptone Silver Box is a super high-end tube. There's like 11 or 12 of these in the world. These new compressors we're trying out in the 500 rack.
These are all things that are being built over there, or just like this mic pre here?
They're all of them. Yeah, they're all being built next door. Yeah.
Oh, sick.
So that's crazy. Well, this was built in his old space because we hadn't built it yet.
Right.
And there's a HOC compressors down there.
Wow, I didn't even see this.
These are here. Those are Scott's. And so the cool thing is, like, I can, you know, try things out when he's building them. And we'll sit and drink beer and talk about ideas for like spring reverb units and things like that he's built. And he'll even build me like he made me just a foot pedal to mute headphones. You know, like when you're working and you don't want to change your headphone level, like turn the knob down.
Right.
And you want to just monitor on headphones and then set them down. And they're blaring over here by your workstation. Like, just have a foot switch. All it is, it's just a little, like a stopbox pedal.
Stuff. Yeah.
And it turns it off. It's great. So he built me little things like that as a pal.
Nice. That's so cool. And this board, man.
So yeah, the console, we finally got rid of this Allen Heath console that we had. It was falling apart, and so we donated it to a place that taught kids how to record.
Nice, that's so
That was
cool.
their problem. I don't know where that thing went. Before they were building these, they'd showed me some schematics and design for this console at Rupert Neve Designs, and the owner Josh had shown me these, and I was like, oh gosh, I want that. It's 45 volt rails, like plus and minus 45 volt of power. In most consoles, like a max out at like 28 volts generally.
Okay.
Like Neves and stuff, and then like APIs I think are 16 volt plus and minus. So this is way beyond the headroom that you get with that. Plus everything is a transformer input or output. There's no point the signal path is being compromised.
Right.
You know, it's one of the best signal paths you're going to get on any analog console ever made,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
And you were telling me also that there's not any mic pre's on this
Yeah.
right? You use it to sum and to sort of like glue things together.
All I needed a console to do for the way I worked was to be able to mix on it, to be able to route things to effects, route things to headphones, route things to buses for parallel processing or group stem processing, printing. So I just knew I just needed really a routing, summing, monitoring console. And the monetary factor on that, there's two factors. One is that if you put in any more like mic pre's or EQs, you could end up with two buckets of stuff, and these are about the same size here. So you'd end up with like your console would start rising up in the air, like your meter bridge is going to be up here.
Yeah,
you have quite a bit of gear, and all of a sudden it's like, where do I put my speakers? And the console's taking up a lot of like real estate vertically, which I didn't want. I wanted a low profile console. And the other thing is like with the common workflow these days, people are using plugins, they're doing things in the box. Like, what is a console? What part of the recording chain is the console involved in? And the old school idea was that your mic pre's were in it, you got your sound, and you put it to tape through the console. And that's kind of why buses existed. And a lot of the early consoles would have as many buses as there were inputs to the tape deck. So you would always just assign to a bus, and that would get it to the track on the tape deck.
Right.
And that way you could submix as you're tracking, like submix your drums down to stereo, record those. You could do all these things like that. Now is like we're going direct with like outboard mic pre's and EQs and compressors going right into Pro Tools or right onto tape is how I was working for years. We're monitoring through the console maybe, or maybe we're just monitoring through Pro Tools. We don't need the console to be the center of the studio anymore.
Okay.
And to be honest, there's days where I'm tracking, maybe overdubbing or working on a full tracking for a band. I don't even have the console on because I don't need it for anything at that point. I'm doing all the routing in Pro Tools.
Right.
If I track to tape and then I want to dump the tape to the Pro Tools, I can even do that without a console, but I'll usually have a console, have it on, and I'll be listening to my mix, and they'll be listening to their mix out in the room, and then we'll have a way to just dump straight from tape to Pro Tools.
So would you say the console mostly being a routing mechanism at this point?
Yeah.
What are you hearing from it shifting through paths? Does it have an influence on the EQ, the harmonics of it, or is it?
It will, and in the summing realm, yeah.
Yeah.
You could patch your mic pre's into it, and you could print tracks to Pro Tools and ride the levels as they go in, or you could sum things through it, which I do we were talking earlier about two mics on a guitar amp and summing those to one track in Pro Tools or tape. I always do that. And I'll use the console buses for that. Harmonically, to me, it does add quite a bit for when you mix through it. And when you really push, I'm pushing a mix through there, I'll have the meters basically pegging on the left-right output quite often, and nothing, no inserts on my left-right bus, and there's a kind of compression that the console does.
Gotcha.
Partly due to transformers and the analog op-amp circuitry that they use, their own proprietary op-amps. So that works really well like that. And sometimes I've even had people say like, hey, can you take the limiter off of that mix? And I'm like, there's no limiter. That's the console, like kind of gluing everything together. So there's a thing that happens, and then sometimes I really will. For very like open acoustic music, I might really back it off, and I might back off how I'm coming out of the computer converters and send less level to the console, so I'm not hammering those transformers on the input stages on the line input, if you follow my drift, because that also creates a little bit of limiting on the input. So I will tailor how much I'm sending out of Pro Tools into the console to get the right sound on the channel, and then also maybe bring the faders down so I'm not hammering the output bus for like a very acoustic based session or what have you.
Right. So sick. It's also beautiful.
Honestly.
Honestly.
I mean, it's a funny thing, but you know, we see a lot of consoles now that don't, I mean, a lot of studios that don't have console, right? And that's totally, I mean, I could, my home setup, there's like a little dangerous D-box monitor, and there's a couple speakers I can switch between.
Yeah, I mean,
and
most
there's
people
a little Focusrite thing, you know?
Most people watching right now are probably not going to have
you don't have to have a console. Everything in this studio is like that extra percent of like, oh my God, this is what you probably can't do at home unless you're rich.
Totally.
And that's the whole point of having a studio to me, is having things like, and we'll go in the live room and talk about, you know, how you set up in there and how people can have all these features that you would be really difficult to do on your own, like recording at home.
Exactly.
Really, you know, to be able to play together and have isolation and headphone mixes that you control yourself as a musician. Fantastic, you know.
I mean, if you think about, let's say, recording a kit at home versus recording a kit here, your day rate is
$350 to rent the space, but that doesn't include any people.
Okay, gotcha.
So you hire an engineer, a staff engineer, or you bring an engineer, or you engineer.
I mean, like, the amount to buy all the microphones and to buy a 5-input interface and then buy all the emulators, you're looking at probably more than a day rate to have a really good drum sound here and like work with all this kit. So, I mean, it makes sense.
I've done records where people come in for one day, track all the drums. You know, they might have like things demoed up, you know, click tracks, all sorts of stuff ready, and we just run all the drums down, and then they're like, okay, we'll come back and mix. It's like, to me, that's taking really good advantage of studio time and probably not spending that much money. You know, although sometimes they never come back to mix, so I don't know where they are.
All right, one more question about the control room, then I want to check out the live room. You know, I have defaults that I reach for, and a lot of times they're the emulator versions, but they are pretty standard stuff. Like I'll reach for an LA2A or an 1176. Do you have sort of like a default workflow that you're like, oh, I'm tracking drums, I'm recording vocals, like my default before I decide I don't like it for this sound source? What does that chain look like?
It's always changing.
Always changing.
It's always. For many years, I used this Pendulum Audio Quartet, which it's a channel strip, basically. It's like a preamp, an equalizer, and a compressor, and a de-esser, which I would never track with that on. But it sounds great. It's all tube-based. It's beautiful. I should turn it on, you know, make it happy. There we go. And it's really well designed. It's really hard to make it sound bad. And I love gear like that. But, you know, I started feeling like the tubes sometimes can feel a little soft as far as preamps. Sometimes. That's not. I don't want to generalize too much, because that's not always true. I started, but just kind of moving around more, and I really like actually some of the amp tone stuff, like MP500A. They're just like little preamps that are JFET amplifiers, and they're very clear and they're very focused. You know, I like those. And lately, I've been using the Soyuz Lakeside preamp,
Soyuz
which is also, I'm pretty sure, a JFET architecture. And I kind of like a little more, for rock music, a little more of the immediacy of a JFET amplifier over a tube amplifier. This is 30 some odd years in. 40 years since I first walked into a studio as a musician this summer. So that's crazy. But, you know, this is not A/B testing. This is like knowing and having that gut feeling and just going, sometimes it needs this. But so that's always kind of changing. My path is always changing.
It can be kind of psychological. Like, I know sometimes, in theory, I could get a great sound out of two, you know, routes, and they're both going to kind of get me to a great mix at the end of the day. But I might have used a distressor so much that I kind of default to the same workflow, the same settings that I had on the last mix, and and I get into this sort of rigid mindset with something that I've used before, and you might just need to like
just break it up.
Try something new.
I mean, it's always fun to get new products to review. Like the Lakeside was one of those, the preamp. The Soyuz preamp. That was something where I was like, this is really good. This is really well designed. It's not cheap. I mean, but it's not that expensive. You know, it's like in the $1,500 realm or something. You know, but that's only for one channel. So like in a home studio, hell no, you know.
Yeah.
You might not want to do that.
You know, one thing,
you know?
This is like sort of a jump in subject, but we were talking before we started rolling the camera. And I think this is so important to bring up because, you know, we were talking about how a lot of times in modern production, especially in the home studio, people have kind of swung in this other direction where they want their mix to sound so analog that they cut so much top end and everything is so like mid-range focused or like almost band passed in a way. How do you view when you're working with all this gear, this analog gear? I just want to hear from you that like that doesn't mean that you're
wink, wink
gutting harmonic information. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. I mean, everything's a choice. And finding like, you know, like putting together a chain of a mic and different things for the vocalist to get a good sound on their part. That fits in the mix that you've got going currently is really important. Is really important. And it's like whether that was like a Blackheart Procession 7-inch I was recording like 30 years ago that was like, you know, a really fancy mic and then like a 58 distortion pedal into a guitar amp sitting on the floor getting also picked up by the fancy mic. Like whatever it takes to get there, I'm down with. But I like the capturing in that moment. I will commit to the most crazy sounds as long as we all feel excited. You know, I don't like to try to make all that happen later. I mean, things will happen later. You know, someone like this band I'm working with, the Prids, the keyboard player will play a few parts live while they're tracking and then just go home and send me new tracks playing to the basics. And then I got stuff just like raw material. And then I'll just manipulate and use parts and not use parts. And it's really fun, you know, really a great way to work. But, you know, the rest of it, we're tracking here. And I'm coaching. This is the part to me that everyone seems to miss. Is when I record a singer, I'm on the talkback. I have a foot switch talkback, and my hands are busy in Pro Tools, and I am constantly like soloing things and listening, but I'm like going, oh, hey, try this, try that, sing this, like take that word out, do this, sing that note higher, go here, go there. Like I'm arranging as I'm tracking, and I'm trying to get, I consider anything I'm doing, I'm still producing 99% of the time, even when I'm just mixing in the box, doing a cheap mix for someone. I'm like, producing. And it's like, so like the other day I was recording the vocals for a Prids song and I had Mistina going, I had the singer Mistina going, you know, she'd be like, there's a section of the song I don't know what to do here, and I'd be like, oh, just sing in between his lines and go like bum, bum, okay, now let's do another note, bum, you know, like stack a little chord of vocals in these gaps. So I just sit, I'm all about, I'll sing the parts back to the singer. I'm not a great singer, but I know I can hold my pitch relatively. And, you know, I'll be like, oh, God, you know, do this, do that, you know, and that's so much more important than someone going, make it sound analog. To me, that sounds like little children that are just embarrassed of their music. And it's like, I think that's just amateur hour. I know there's big hits that are being mixed this way. It's a trend. I hate trends in recording. They never last. When Radiohead, OK Computer was big, everybody came in and go like, super compress the drums. Oh my God, make the drums go blip, blip, blip with the compressor. And I'd be like, oh, fuck.
That's
Jesus
still a
Christ,
trend.
you know?
You know, distressor and parallel, crush it, and then put it under it, get the room out. Like that is...
I do that stuff, but I don't do it in ways that you think he's trying to sound like Radiohead.
Exactly.
You know? And I just, you know, and then the Strokes were big and everybody would come in. I'd just be sitting there, this band sounds just like the Strokes. I'd be like, how many minutes until the singer goes, can you distort the vocals? And then, yep, there it is. And I just, it's so stupid. Or I had all these bands that sound like fake Pavement. You know, when I opened, and I knew Pavement, and I ended up recording Pavement. But it's like, you know, they'd come in and they'd be like, oh yeah, here's that sort of lax vocal, but nothing near as interesting, you know, as what Steven does, you know, and just... You know, and then I still even get like fake Elliott Smith things, you know, so it's like when it really, when I can say like that's that song, oh God, you know, it seems pointless. So I don't know, I'm kind of going on a rant, but it's like I love music so much. I want to see music move forward, and I don't want to see music get stuck in stylistic recording ruts because that's cool this week.
Yeah.
You know, or anything. It's like, that kind of bums me out.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like, there's so much possibility. Like, listen to Bjork records or something.
Totally.
Or, you know, listen to Nigel Godrich's work where you do hear like all this evolution of technique and just open to sonic experiments. And there's so much good music out there and good recordings and interesting recordings. And they don't all have to be about fidelity or anything. But if I'm going to make a vocal sound like a megaphone, there has to be an emotional reason that that's happening for that vocal, and that's going to make it feel like something more than what it is without that on there. And I don't think people are thinking that way as much as they should.
Right. Absolutely.
And when people tell me, like, you know, put a tape emulator on something or whatever, I'm like, that's not where the magic is.
Yeah.
You know, the magic's not there. The magic was in your songwriting, your performance, you know.
I think ability for like there's so many plugins now that like the dry wet knob can go to like 200%. I think that is really dangerous.
How does it do that?
You know, like there's the 0, there's the 100, and then like
even more.
I did a short once where it was a Tascam 414 emulation and then the Tascam 414, and I did like an A/B of the both of them. And the emulation was so crunchy and had all the top end removed, and the actual 414 was like, it was just trying to record things decently on budget.
They were trying, and you could. I made recordings on my 4-track cassette that people thought I'd go into a studio, you know, because I was very careful.
Yeah, but that people think it's a vibe tool sometimes.
It can be. I mean, it can be handled in a way that does make it, you know, there's compression artifacts on cassette tape that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, there's all these things, but, you know, at the end of the day, you still got to have clarity so that you can hear what's going on.
Totally.
You know, or intentional non-clarity.
Yeah.
But it's not like, you know, just slather something on that makes it better.
Yeah,
Ever.
exactly.
Ever.
Well, let's go check out this live room.
Yeah, we do have a live room. Come with us. So, this has the green color that you were talking about, Elliott Smith. You know, the green walls were, in fact, the original live room at the old Jackpot was 4 different colored walls. And the idea we thought, Elliott and I thought, move the mic towards the green wall, you know. No one ever said that. Never.
It sounds great in here too. How did you guys go about like figuring out the balance of like a live sound versus a controlled sound?
Took our time. We made a bunch of these panels that are like 703.
Oh, these are all made. You built these.
All the colored ones are homemade.
Wow.
The black ones are the real traps that are like in the control room.
Right.
We didn't make them right, apparently. We put them on pieces of plywood, which we're supposed to undo. It'll sound better, apparently. So we didn't do that right. But we just kept putting stuff on the walls. When we moved in here, my manager was Kendra Lynn for many, many, many years. She was our manager, and she's fantastic. And so she did a lot of the overseeing of getting panels made and putting stuff up. And we just kind of did it to see and put it up to see what we think, you know, just see if it worked well or not. It was really kind of just keep adding more. There's a huge bass trap right over here, the purple thing.
Oh, right.
That's like full of rock wool and stuff, so that's kind of protecting us from sending too much sound into Scott's side next door at Gotcha. So that went in after a handful of months, and he was like, dude, your drummers are killing me.
Yeah, I'm building a studio now, and I'm a little bit worried about that because it's in like a multi-dimensional space. Like there's like a tattoo parlor next to me, and that's gonna be
that can be kind of that you can kind of drive people crazy. Luckily here we drive each other a little crazy. If he makes noise over there, sometimes I'll hear it, or vice versa, of course. But you know, if there's really a problem, we can just check in and be like, hey. Give me 20 minutes.
These booths are sick. Are you like sometimes recording like a kit in here as well? Or
you can. It's kind of chunky sounding. There's a lot of like 400 hertz reflection.
Right.
But mostly that was just to have a place to put like amps or singers or horn players or acoustic instruments, and then have drums out here. Or you can roll the piano in there as well.
Oh, nice.
So the upright piano can fit in there. It gets a wide array of uses for sure. And then, you know, I've had like a trumpet player in here, a singer in there. bass amp or something in the or a guitar amp in the walkthrough, you know, piano on the floor, cello players out here, a drummer behind the couch in the control room, a bass player DI'd on the couch.
Just everywhere. It's so cool.
You know, it's just you can put people all over if you do it right.
Come check out this pedal cabinet too.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stomp boxes.
That's so sick.
Some of the things just kind of keep, you know, friends drop by, you know, that are representing products or run companies and give us stuff, like Benson or Surfy Bear. Some of the companies will send us new stuff to check out, you know, like Earthquaker, super nice, and UAD and Union. Union pedals. You can see all the Union pedals there.
Oh yeah, and you got a third man, the Bumble.
Yeah,
the Bumble
that's a
Buzz.
Union built pedal too.
Gotcha.
One of the cool things, like, do we have that Death by Audio rooms down there? And then people like that are like, no, keep it. We want the musicians to try them out at your place. You know? So that's kind of a fun thing, you know. People get turned on to stuff and buy it, you know, down the line maybe. I really like having all the stomp boxes. I'll set the guitarist up like in the control room with me when we're in the overdub stages, and I'll use the radial SGI boxes to send the signal out through the tie lines, and pump it into their amp. It's like a reamp or a DI and a reamp. And I'll sit there and I'll totally arrange their guitar parts. I'll say, well, what do you normally play? And they'll play me through the song, and it's all just a jumble. And I'm like, okay, let's strip this part down to these chords and do this, and then let's record the chorus here, and let's just double it up, and let's change the voicing and change it. And I'll just have stomp boxes all over the counter. And I use this is a really fun thing. We use these battery-powered stomp box power supplies. So we'll charge them up, and then we'll run them from that, so we don't get any of that god-awful wall wart noise or ground loops or anything.
Totally.
So this is to me is like one of the coolest things you can do in the studio.
It's one of those pragmatic things.
Clean up your sound,
You know, one thing that I have been constantly trying to work towards, and I've mentioned this a few times on this channel ever since the Rage Against the Machine interview with Garth. One thing that I think home engineers, new producers are really bad at is getting all of this material and then not committing, and stuff like bringing these sort of like chains and going through the talk back and like try this, or let's punch in here, and making sure that you can commit to a sound before you start mixing. That's really important. Like, I've seen Rich Costi mix. Rich will sit down and like be so analytical about a sound at the source whenever he's producing, and then I see him mix that same source and he runs it through one compressor and he EQs it, and
it's mostly done.
Yeah, he can finish a mix in 25 minutes.
There's a really big difference between producing, engineering, and then mixing your own work, and then getting sent other people's work and having to finish it off. Because I do both a lot, and it's like, for me, if I'm engineering it, I'm taking care of a lot of the problems at the engineering and producing stage, like all that arrangement work, all those sound choices that just, I don't have to do much. I've mixed albums that I've produced. One of the albums I did in a day and a half off of tape, you know, because it was 16 track and it was a rock band, and it was basically done. You know, it's like put a little slap back on the vocal, pan the guitars out. Okay, we're good. You know, and it's like, to me, that's the supreme way of working, because there's no choices you could make, hardly. You could make infinite choices, but they wouldn't be necessary.
Totally. I mean, I think my journey through doing all of this, because I don't ever really want to sound like I have it figured out, because every single time I make a video, every time I like study the lens of another person and another producer, I learn more. But one thing that I've constantly tried to narrow in on is, you know, it's sort of this more, I would say, golden age mindset of committing to a workflow and a sound, and not leaving it up to interpretation and options.
Absolutely.
And if you're a mixer at home, if you're somebody who's mixing their own work and producing their own work, if you can eliminate options as quick as possible, it is so much easier to be like really productive and really like fruitful and create a lot, and not have the same sort of like a lot of mental stagnation. And it also teaches you how to be a better producer. And if there's one thing I could try and like nail is that being a good mixer starts at being a good producer.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the things that are easiest to mix are really well thought out. Like, I've got a client that sends me stuff. It's mostly kind of acoustic and vocal and harmony based. And it's just a pleasure because I'm not trying to fix much of anything. I might fix a few guitar scrapey noises and things like that, and I'll just kind of EQ a few things to make them feel richer or fuller or give a space to sit in. But it's all very nice, like considered simple choices that just enrich the music. Yeah. And it's fine. And then when I get things, like I've had people send me like 100 tracks and like 40 of them are vocal takes of the same, just all sorts of random ideas. I'm like, what do you want me to do? Yeah. And they couldn't let go of any. There's this one little cool spot. And I'm like, well, then cut it out and just give me that spot if that's so important. But then they're like, well, I guess it doesn't matter. Delete that one. Okay, the next track, and you're like, this is just a salvage job, you know. It's pointless. I come from like recording on 4-track or actually 2-track cassette and then 4-track. So I'm like, you have to get your ideas down fast or there's nothing there. And you can't like undo half of what you do on a 4-track. So you just move forward, and if it's not good, you just throw it out and start again. Yeah, totally. I mean, that's one thing people don't seem to be able to do 90% of the time, is just to throw a whole song away and consider what they did, sort of sorting it out, experimenting and demoing. Yeah. And then let's recut it better. Yeah, exactly. It's real easy to do, folks. You just erase it and start over. Totally. It's just not that big a deal. Your favorite records were made that way. Yeah. It's good to hammer home. It's good that, I'm trying to heal from that mindset, honestly, because I am a digital baby. Well, yeah. I started on tape, so there was no undoing. There was no, you punch in and you're like, oh, damn it, I restarted too early. You erase something. Right. Okay, re-sing it. There was a lot of like destructive, punch-ins and things that you couldn't. My old tape deck couldn't punch out. Yeah. So if you had a bass mistake, like on the first chorus, you're like, unless there's a pause somewhere where there's a big empty spot where the bass isn't playing, you got to just play the rest of the song. Yeah. Or I would run over and hit stop and lift the tape off of the heads. So it would stop recording physically. Yeah. Like drop the little tape guard, hold the tape lifter thing and go, wham! And then it was crazy. It's dangerous, but yeah. Nice, man. It worked. Cool. Why don't we go over back into the console room really quick? Yeah, sorry. To me, this seems more of like a technique thing than a production thing, but if there is any like sort of production hacks, I would love to know. People kept asking in the comments of the original Elliott Smith video how Elliott's doubling sounded nearly perfectly in phase all the time, and the only answer I was able to give was he is really good timing. But was there anything on like the technical side, the miking side, that helped him stay so in phase? No, that's just performance. I figured. I think that's kind of how he thought about the music part, how it was written and arranged. And that he would just have a memory, of how he sang it before. There was actually a glitch on Miss Misery. Oh, really? There's a spot where the doubles are not good. Oh, and I've read on a forum once, they were like, sounds like the engineer messed up. I didn't notice. Me. And people don't really generally notice it, but I remember at the exact moment, we run it down and he does it, and I go, well, that bridge or something, the double's not perfect. And he goes, it's fine. No. I'm like, well, really, do you want to punch it in? Punch it in. We should punch it in. He's like, no, it's fine. So was he usually really analytical about doubling being perfect, or was it just kind of natural? He made it look easy. Yeah. That's kind of what I told people. I assumed it was just him being really tight. I think he had more of a mathematical music memory, like a chart, in his head for the music, where the notes were. And since he's doing all the instrumentation himself, is that also translated to the drums and the keys and everything too? Like, was he? Yeah, it wasn't. In my experience, things didn't take long to track. Okay. Like Miss Misery took a couple hours, and then the vocals are maybe like an hour. That's another wild. Day after he took it away out of cassette, came back and fine-tuned the lyrics. Because you can hear that demo version on New Moon, and the words are different, obviously, and the music's a little differently performed, So he would take the cassette of the instrumental off and then come back and be like, "Oh, you remember that song?" Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't, and then put new vocals on it. So, but then none of it took very long. Maybe 4 hours max, even to do a rough mix, and boom. All plotted out kind of in his head beforehand. Yeah, just like he knew. I think he was like, the music part was easier at that point, because I think that he could store in his brain almost and walk around with it mapped out. But the lead vocal melody would be worked out, but he didn't have the vocal harmonies were hardly ever worked out, because I remember even right at the very beginning of working with him on Pictures of Me, he goes, just give me an open track, don't record it, let me just sing along. song, and he was like, okay, and he'd but it was like one listen and then one performance.
Sending out a probe, right?
Sending out a probe.
Yeah,
he called it that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I need to send out a probe. So he started using that later. I'm like, I know what he means. And sometimes I'd record it just to see if there was something on there. And even on New Moon, there was some that he'd tracked where he'd recorded the probe, and I'd use just like snippets where it was cool.
Yeah.
Just add a little, put it more under, and
it
wasn't a fully fleshed out. But you could hear bad notes.
Yeah.
And then you hear like this perfect little harmony. You're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So there's some at least one song where that's happening. But yeah, he didn't have those always worked out. I think maybe it was more complex relationship because you're thinking of the top line and then you're thinking of the music bed, and you're like, you could easily write an a cappella harmony that wouldn't work with the music if you're a little sloppy,
right?
Or adventurous, I should say. Right. Honestly,
probing.
Yeah, probe. You got to probe it. Yeah.
Was he much of a gearhead, or was he just kind of like, this will get me to the means I need?
Kind of, yeah. It was weird because he would talk about stuff that he liked and things. He had a Longevin AM16 preamp. There was something wrong with it. I think he took it down to his studio to New Monkey and probably used it there. But he had like some Orban stuff that we never used, like a spring reverb that never seemed to be quite right, and I think an equalizer. They were more like radio broadcasts, kind of with terminal strips on the back.
Okay.
That kind of gear. But like he had his Longevin CR3A mic we talked about, like the large diaphragm condenser. Like remember we were in the store, we went to this place called Super Digital. It was called Super Duper before that because they did tape duplication. And then it was Super Digital. Our friend Rick ran that, and we went in there one day and there was a very early Manley Very-Mu compressor before they called it that or anything.
Okay.
One of their very early ones. I remember when I sent it for repair, Ivana was like, "You've got one of those?" Like,
yeah.
When it was still a Jackpot before he took all his gear to New Monkey. But he would be like, "Oh, that's supposed to be really good," you know. And so he would know like things. He bought me an RE20, I think, at some point because I was like, "Oh, I really want one of those." And he bought a tremolo pedal that someone stole from us. I was really annoyed.
I remember he used a Behringer Composer compressor.
Yeah,
right,
that was
the record.
That thing finally bit the dust. Like,
yeah,
I remember it was in like a tub, like I took it all apart. I couldn't get it to work anymore.
Yeah. Did he just like, repairing. This is what I have, or is it
kind of just
I
what
actually
he could
really
afford?
like this tone?
No,
okay.
I don't think that's what.
Oh, okay.
A lot of what he learned was from Tony Lash, who was the drummer for Heat Miser. So Tony's a really good engineer, great drummer, great musician. He played in Heat Miser with Elliott and Neil Gust.
He learned from Joanna too, right? Joanna Bowman.
Joanna knew some things, and then he and I taught Joanna some other things. She's a great musician. Obviously played with Stephen Malkmus and the Jicks, and she was dating Elliott when we opened the studio, so she was even there like when we had breakfast and named the studio and all sorts of stuff. So she's like a sister, you know what I mean? Yeah. And she understood basic miking and all kinds of stuff. I started throwing her on sessions actually, around then. But she knew music or knows music so well she could just call, and she's really blunt, so she'd be like, "That's flat," She'll tell you.
It's good to have. I'm terrible at that.
Yeah.
Anytime I have to like give a musician a note, I'm like, "That was good. Can we do another take?"
Yeah, she's a good taskmaster. Like I had her help me record our band, so I didn't have to be the engineer and stuff when I was playing with Elephant Factory. Yeah, it was great. It was great working with her and Elliott. It was like we were all kind of learning.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
But we all kind of looked up to people like Tony Lash, and I'd worked with people like John Bacigalupi, who I started Tape Op with, and Greg Freeman, who had produced the first couple of Vomit Launch records, the band I was in. And so I'd worked with those guys for 4 albums of stuff before I moved up here, and I'd been in the studio doing that stuff and some other projects, and I would help people with my 4-track. I'd go record people sometimes in Chico, California, where I was living, and I was just always involved in that world. I never intended to make this my career, but it just kind of happened.
Yeah, well, that's the best way to do it. I mean, clearly it's working out.
Something happened. Yeah.
2 more questions I wanted to ask.
Sure.
The first one, when you think of like the sort of production rig that you were using on Either Or, and that for the time was kind of considered a DIY sort of rig for recording records.
What do you mean?
Like Tascam 38 Mackie.
Like what Elliott was using?
Yeah. And then when you think of a home recording studio now, you got a Focusrite.
Yeah,
probably got a 57 and a Rhodes mic, and
that's probably what he'd have now if he was starting out, right?
What do you think are the benefits and detriments of both? Like,
I mean, tape is I wish people wouldn't mythologize it.
That's kind of what
you
I'm
know.
after.
I'm a little annoyed at that because he liked it. So he was adamant about working on tape and keeping it analog, partly because of the final Heat Miser record, Mike City's Sons, because that was done on Tascam D88s, which were like Betamax tapes, and they were digital recorders. They were 8-track recorders, and you would get a couple of those units. You could sync them up eventually. That's when you start running into trouble, and they were working on that record initially without Rob and Tom being involved, and then they got brought in to help produce, and they were getting things like you keep punching in the section and all of a sudden get like a digital spike through all the tracks, you know. So they were able to take it to somebody who was able to like delete those or cut them out and put it back on the tape. I don't know who or how. But he had such a horrible experience with digital recording that he was like, no way.
Right. So Elliott liked tape because digital was so primitive.
To him, it was like an impediment. Like the guy wanted to get it done. When I later got to interview Susan Rogers about working with Prince and stuff, same exact person. Like massively obsessed with just writing and recording. You know, and being good at it, being a good performer, a good writer.
Somebody gave it a label once. I think they called Prince like a super creator or something. It's like this sort of like hyper prolific
song factory.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and Elliott was like that. He told me directly, like, I want to write and record. Everything else is something I have to do.
Yeah.
You know, interviews, touring.
Totally.
And so like for him, it was like just this, it was almost like a mental game to keep himself, you know, busy and out of trouble.
Right.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But you know, so the more he had to work, the more he worked, and it would always, you know, you knew that every step led to improvement, you know, obviously.
Totally.
And just keep writing songs and throw some out and pick the best ones for a record. And for that certain thing, and then use the rest later for something. Constantly. And I think working fast is part of that. So like if you're like having digital stuff that just keeps glitching and fucking up on you, like then it's like that's an impediment. I don't want to work that way. Even after he passed, there were still like people would be like, God damn it, I was trying to use this software and it crashed on us the other day, you know. It was like not as robust. I feel like now, and I'll say this, I'm going to turn on the computer in a minute, it's going to crash on me. Pro Tools will crash, but you know, generally it's pretty robust these days.
And you got recovery files if anything goes wrong and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you're not just having like mysterious things all the time.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I think he had that awful experience with that. Going back to your question, I think that people mythologize all of his equipment far too much. Like when you were trying to recreate it in your video, that was interesting and that was cool because you're trying to figure out why does it sound this way. You know, some of it wasn't choice. The misunderstanding of all this is thinking that his choice was a Tascam 38 for some kind of reason. No, it's because they were $1,000. It had 8 channels on it, and he could buy a cheap mixer and make it work.
Totally.
You know, so for like less than $2,000, you could have a multi-track rig. You know?
Yeah.
You know, these were not like aesthetic, like this is the best equipment choices. Like a Behringer Composer is a ripped-off circuit and a horrible piece of equipment. You know, so it's like it's not really worth owning or searching out. Especially thinking that you're going to get the Elliott Smith sound out of one is just insanity to me.
That's still happening. Like there's
that's nuts.
Have you ever seen there's like a Roland guitar synth system called the Roland VG8?
I remember some of those things back in the day.
You had to get like this Roland GK pickup. Had like sticky bottoms. You put it under the strings. You would send it through this synth system. And there's a guitarist, McGee, have you heard of McGee?
I know the name,
He basically like is the most, I would argue, the most desired guitar tone right now, and he used that VG8 to get that sound. Roland makes other guitar synth systems. And some of them are pretty close to the VG8. But the VG8 was $150 before that, and now it's $1,200.
Yeah, of course.
And then you go to the VG88, which is technically the higher end version with similar tones. That one's $400. And it used to be $100. It's just that it's constantly happening. And
we're always afraid if we like to run an interview with someone and they're like, oh, I use this weird mic, you know, I'll go look on eBay, reverb. How much is it right now? And maybe sometimes I'll buy stuff. I'll be like, well, that sounds like kind of a fun tool to have, because I'll be like, well, next week it might be more, you know, when the magazine's out. I think people really misunderstand how it all works.
Totally.
You know, there's a really good book out called Gear by Elliott Bates and Samantha Bennett, right? And it's published by MIT Press, and it's all about the sort of fetishizing and mythologizing of recording equipment. And it's amazing. I just did a podcast interview with them, and they interviewed me for the book. I'm in it a bit, blathering on as I am right now. And anyone that's interested should read it. It's a hard read. It's a little academically written,
right?
But they had to do that in order to present everything in the proper way. And I think it's really important. We're all like basically mythologizing a tiny window most of the time, a tiny window of studios, recording equipment engineers that made some classic records between like 1965 and 1985, maybe more like 1980, you know. So like there's this tiny window, 15 years of like when there was a lot of money in the music industry, you know, and these people made these records that people think sound good. Great, whatever. But we're mythologizing that and putting it on this pedestal and saying this is how to do it when no one's really making records like that now. In general, the pop music is not being built that way.
Right.
So why are we talking about, you know, how Al Schmitt recorded something? No offense to anyone that I'm going to mention, but why are we mythologizing or talking about this so much and what mics he used on, you know, Sinatra or whatever he was doing? I don't know. And then they're trying to apply that to like The Weeknd. You know, this means nothing. This means nothing to nothing. You know. Yeah. And I think that whole thing of it all is just so skewed. You know, because I don't own hardly. I have like a couple of vintage mics, you know, from like the 50s or something. 2 little Microtech Gefell mics that are from East Germany, you know. You know, most everything I have is boutique equipment that's been made in the last 20 or 30 years by small companies. Most of it's, you know, maybe on Gear Space or something, people are fetishizing some of the stuff now because it's just old enough.
Totally.
But it is, you know, I knew the person who was building it when it got made, you know. Yeah. And so it's like the fetishizing, the obsessing over stuff, and there's people out there that own like rooms full of gear that don't even make records.
Totally.
Because they just get all weird about it.
They like building the system.
I don't understand any of that. Like all of this to me, you could give me like 1/8 or 1/16 of what's in these rooms, and I make you a great record. Easily, you know, and it's all based on everything else that I've done and know, and not the equipment.
Yeah. I hope when people watch my videos, some people get upset at me for, I think, the romanticization of gear, because they'll go, that wasn't the guitar he used, and that wasn't the amp he used, and I make a point to be like, these are the ones that are in the recording studio or the rehearsal space next to my house, and I'm going to try it. And then, that mic position didn't work. That mic didn't work. This one didn't work. That one kind of worked.
You're kind of spelling it out in some of these, like how someone could get good sounds on their own with minimal equipment.
Yeah.
So that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about you got to have everything exactly identical.
Yeah. The hope is the process shines through, that there is things that are going to work and things that aren't going to work until eventually you, by process of elimination and by experience, you find a tone that is either in your head or a tone that you stumble upon, but you can then commit to later.
Yeah.
And that is, I worry I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but they're like, the modern world of production is so focused on the post-production rather than pre-production.
Everything. I wrote an end piece about that a while back. And it's just like everything has been pushed into the mix stage.
Yeah, it's all the plug-in chains. It's like that's the formula. That's the sauce or whatever. And you go download your favorite chain from your favorite influencer, and you try and pop that on your production and your vocal, and you hope it works. And
99% of the time, it does not work.
And psychologically, you think it does. You're like, I paid money for it. I heard it on this video. Like, why is this vocal?
I mean, like I said earlier, fixing a vocal starts when you're talking to the person in the room and you're getting a good take, and you're helping them figure out what a good take means and all that stuff, and then you got a great vocal. It's like most of the vocals I get sent to mix from have major faults. You know, like they're singing way too close to a cardioid mic, you know, and it's blowing out the low end. It's distorted. They're singing next to an acoustic guitar hanging on a peg, so it's ringing out like it's an echo chamber. They're singing in a reverberant room. They're not using a pop filter, so there's a giant P's that distort the audio all the way through the frequency spectrum. They're singing with a ton of S's, and they didn't consider that and then move back from the mic or anything. I mean, I can just go on and on and on with all the problems with these vocals, and I sit in Isotope RX for like an hour for every song I mix, cleaning up vocals.
Right, totally.
Depopping, declicking, turning down just like consonants that jump out randomly because their head's moving around or whatever is going on.
Right.
And I understand. And maybe they're not adept singers or practice singers or, but man, recording a record for like, Jenny Lewis or Sleater Kinney or whoever is in here and they're just like dropping vocals like boom. Oh, great, done, okay. It's like, because they're out gigging and playing and writing and rehearsing and it's like they're working at their craft.
Yeah, they know mic technique.
Yeah, and it's like, if you're not, you can concern yourself all you want with buying the best mics. You can give a $20,000 mic and you can get all this stuff, but if you're not working on the other part of it, it's just not, you're just capturing something better, worse.
Right.
Something worse, better. I don't know. Whatever. More fidelity for something that's not being done well. It's like, it doesn't gain you anything.
Right.
Well,
I guess that leads to my final question. If you took all the bedroom engineers and you fused them into one stereotype of a human being, and then you walked up to them and you grabbed them by the shoulders and you started shaking them, and I said, I need you to get this through your head. What would it be? Like, what would you tell the bedroom producer at home?
My first question is, are they the writer? Are they writing the songs, or are they just recording someone else?
Let's say they are the writer. They're recording themselves, mixing, producing, and launching it on DistroKid.
First thing I say is keep writing. Just go back to the basic part of the song and look at it harder. Listen to some of your favorite music and listen to how those recordings are constructed. Like, think of what you're aiming for. What kind of backing tracks is this going to have? How am I fleshing out the song? Then go listen to things that are in that zone. Don't listen to things that don't have any bearing on it. Listen to something that sounds similar to what you're doing. Write down, like, I want drums coming in here, this kind of beat. Map all that out. But listen to their stuff and go, what makes these stay interesting? Because most songs are pretty fucking boring. And I'm just saying that as a matter of course. Don't get me wrong. The music industry is not merit-based. Because you write a great song doesn't mean you deserve shit. Do you have a publicist? Do you have a manager? Are you on tour? Are you in front of people? Are you getting this in every streaming service and at the top of the playlist? And there's a million other factors that make songs popular. So it's not merit-based. Then you can tell by listening to the charts. If you listen to the stuff you admire, listen to the way it's constructed and the way it's been not recorded, the way it's been arranged and performed. And that's so important. And that's exactly, like we keep talking about Elliott Smith, that's what he was doing, Is there a tiny key change for like one bar? Is there like an inverted chord that leads us into that bridge in a really different way than just having the same exact chorus leading into that as every other chorus? Little touches that keep it interesting. And most people can't apply that understanding to their own music very well. So if you're trying to produce yourself, listen to what people that you admire, that you consider like the best of this sort of genre, whatever world you might be in. What is really good about this, and why are these songs not boring? Is it the story in the song? Is it the feeling in the song? Is it the pace, the energy, the lack of energy? What is it? And do you have that? Because if you don't, work on it. Like, don't start recording before you have the thing that you're trying to record done.
Yeah.
I'll sit here, and honestly, I'll be in Isotope cleaning up a vocal that's got the pop Ps and guitars ringing out after every long note and all this stuff. Listen to that soloed outside the song, and I have no idea what they're trying to convey. And I'm not feeling a single emotion from listening to that soloed. But if I put on like Barbra Streisand singing like the cheesiest song, it's going to make you almost cry if you heard a cappella, And you're like, why is that? Great performer, an interesting voice, a great song, even though it might be cheesy. That's the difference. The difference in having great music is like in the writing and getting that all together and then figuring out how to present it.
Totally.
And people just dive into it like, I'll make it sound like the Beatles. That's easy. No, it's not. And the Beatles always sounded like something different anyway. It's like, figure out a way to present it that makes the song better, and that's the producer. You have to think like a producer to really do this well, and you have to think far beyond, what you started with. You have to listen to all that other music, understand what makes these things interesting, and just keep like Trevor Horn told me once, he said they're whiz bangs. Like every number of beats, something new has to happen.
Totally.
You know, there's got to be something that keeps your interest, you know. And it's like, this has to be something compelling, a forward motion of something that keeps the listener interested. And a lot of people, a lot of home recordings and self-producers just fail right out the gate, in my opinion. I try to help them when I'm mixing their work and try to, you know, maybe start staggering things coming in or do something to help them. And most of the time they tell me to undo it and put it back how it was because they don't know how to produce a record. So that would be my thing. I would say that. Yeah. That's all, just that.
Start at the source.
It has to.
Like, this is just a very influential video for me, so I keep referencing the Rage video. But Garth showed me the rough mixes of that first album. He said I can't show them on video, but he wanted me to hear them before I recreated it.
Yeah.
And it was 90% there before anyone ever touched anything.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a Go-Betweens record I worked on, the Friends of Rachel Worth, that just came out in a box set, all my rough mixes, which some of them, 5 of them or 4 of them are already on the record as they were roughs.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't beat them later.
Yeah.
That's like recording carefully with intent, putting exactly what you want on the tape, and then just spending an hour just to knock a rough down to a DAT tape, you know? And it's like, that has nothing to do. I use the same reverb, MIDI Verb 2 04 reverb setting on every single song on those rough mixes. You know what sets out all the songs apart from each other is that they're great songs and they're really well done and they're well played and they're well performed and they're really well written and arranged.
Right.
And you don't have to work hard to make that sound good.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
It's there.
Absolutely. Larry,
yeah.
thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man.
This has been an honor.